Hello, and welcome to the beginning of what I'm considering to be a series within a series. Here on Ranked, I'm setting out to order Walt Disney Animation Studios movies from my least to most favorite, separated by eras. In Disney animation, the movies have been unofficially categorized into 7 eras or ages. Chronologically, the order goes Golden Age, Wartime Era, Silver Age, Bronze Age, Renaissance Era, Post-Renaissance Era, and Revival Era. Of course, being the first, this video will kick things off with the Golden Age. Let's get into it. The Golden Age spans from 1937 to 1942 and includes Walt Disney Animation Studios' first 5 films. The reason it's so short is due to issues relating to World War II, but we'll talk about that more in the next video. The Golden Age is revered, and rightly so, for inventing the full-length animated feature and proving that it could work. It's Walt's vision turned reality, and these films are the pinnacle of classic Disney animation. I've ranked these 5 movies from my least to most favorite. This isn't necessarily a worst to best list, it's just based on how much I personally enjoy watching these films. That being said, make sure to let me know your opinion in the comments down below. Let's start the list. Number 5. I am willing to say that Fantasia is a masterpiece. Walt raised his ambition to new heights with this project that brings moving picture, color, and story to pre-existing classical music. The OG Windows Media Player. The concept was undoubtedly risky, but I would say that it was skillfully and successfully executed. The numerous segments making up the film boast some of the most stunningly gorgeous animation in all of the Disney canon, and they're made cohesive by short connecting intermissions of the orchestra and its conductor. I find Walt's aspirations of continually pushing the envelope inspiring, and even more so impressive that he always found a way to pull them off. So, with all of this praise, why is Fantasia at the bottom? It's because it's boring as hell. Maybe my brain has been fried by this modern age of technology and instant gratification, but the fact that this movie has no dialogue other than the brief intermissions, paired with it being the longest movie in the canon, makes it a struggle for me to get through. I've tried searching user reviews on IMDb to see if anyone else felt the same, and after scrolling through countless 10-star reviews calling Fantasia the greatest animated movie ever made, I found this gem. It gave me a good laugh, and it was nice to see some honesty. I don't doubt many people genuinely enjoy Fantasia, but I also suspect that a lot of those 10-star reviews were out of a feeling of obligation, a respect for the craft. I mean, I'd give Fantasia a 10 for effort in animation, but no matter how much I emphasize the good things about Fantasia, at the end of the day, I just don't like watching it. The segments Toccata and Fugue in D minor and the Nutcracker Suite are pretty, even mesmerizing, but in an abstract way that might send you off to sleep. The Sorcerer's Apprentice is a highlight, I'll admit. Even those who haven't seen Fantasia will likely recognize the images of Mickey in the sorcerer's hat surrounded by the brooms come to life. I'd say that The Sorcerer's Apprentice is likely the reason Fantasia has maintained any relevancy today, but the segment has transcended the movie to become its own entity. The action in this one holds my interest better than most, and it helps to see the familiar face of Mickey Mouse. The music in this segment is probably my favorite of all the tracks included in the movie. The Rite of Spring, better known as the dinosaur segment, moves at the pace of an overweight slug, but it sure is nice to look at. The Pastoral Symphony, the Greek mythology centaur-filled segment, is one of the better ones. It has more of a structured narrative, which is relieving after the dragging of the previous segment. There's still quite a bit of nothing going on, but it doesn't feel like as much of a chore to spend time in this charming, lush setting.
Get it right!
Dance of the Hours is decently entertaining and memorable. Dancing hippos, ostriches, and alligators tend to have that effect. And finally, it's Night on Bald Mountain, my favorite part of Fantasia. The music gets a fittingly dark and epic story to match, one that includes the devil himself. Chernobog is evil, and he is awesome. The creepy and chilling qualities of the segment make it enthralling to watch. I specifically enjoy the impressive fire animation and the different colors used to represent it. The come down from the climax into Ave Maria is a striking contrast and a fitting send-off. I'm just left wondering why Night on Bald Mountain was allowed to show nipple and the centaurs weren't. For all of my gripes with Fantasia, I'm glad to say it ends on a high note. It's almost like a treat for making it through the rest of the movie.
Where's my treat? I've been a very brave little girl.
I am gonna complain one more time though. The intermissions where the conductor speaks and introduces the segments are a bit of a welcome way to break up the film, and they do provide some valuable context, but it gets unnecessary when he describes the entirety of what you're about to watch. If these were trimmed, I think it could help bring that runtime down, as well as make the segments more effective, since we won't have every event told to us prior to watching it on screen. All in all, Fantasia is an artistic feat that is lovely to look at and worthy of admiration and respect. It just so happens that it's also the cure to insomnia. Number 4. Pleasant and innocent on the surface, depressing, psychedelic, and racially insensitive upon deeper inspection. Dumbo is the story of a mute little elephant born with abnormally large ears that grown women elephants think it's okay to openly mock. I'll start with the animation. It's clearly not up to par with the 4 movies that came prior to it, but I can't rip on it too much since this was out of necessity. Dumbo was purposefully simplistic in design and shorter in runtime in an attempt to recoup the financial losses of movies like Pinocchio and Fantasia. This is why it looks a little more cartoony and the backgrounds were done in watercolor. This leaves me with mixed opinions. I know they couldn't help it, but I do like Dumbo less because of the animation. At the same time, I'm sort of glad it has a shorter runtime, but that isn't exactly a compliment. In terms of the songs, I feel pretty neutral. I'm a fan of Casey Jr. and to an extent Baby Mine, but the rest of the songs do little for me. I do like Pink Elephants on Parade, but that's more of a credit to the experimental animation than the song itself. When I See an Elephant Fly is one of the more memorable tracks, but it's sung by the controversial Crows. What's less talked about is Song of the Roustabouts. This one is bad. It's performed by the circus workers who are all faceless black men, and the lyrics describe how they're basically slaves to the circus, but don't worry, they're happy-hearted. They even refer to each other as apes.
Yikes.
Dumbo works surprisingly well as the protagonist of this movie. He doesn't speak, but the animators did an effective job of having him behave in ways that communicate exactly what he's thinking and feeling. He's cute and sweet, which already makes him a rootable character, but paired with the adversity and mockery he faces, I find myself really wanting him to stick it to everyone and succeed. Especially these bitches. Timothy Q. Mouse is a good character, being the only one to defend and stand by Dumbo, but that's not saying a lot because everyone else is pretty much trash. One of the best things Dumbo does is it introduces Werner Felton and Sterling Holloway to the world of Walt Disney Animation Studios movies. They are masters of their craft and go on to deliver countless iconic voice performances for Disney. In the end, Dumbo is a story of adversity and triumph, and specifically finding a way to make your differences your strongest asset. I find that it gets needlessly sad and cruel in moments, but the lower you go, the higher you can get, I suppose. Everything Dumbo goes through makes his success at the end of the movie feel that much more satisfying. It's a simple movie that veers a little into boring territory at times, but its concise runtime keeps that from being a real issue. To me, Dumbo is a solidly okay movie. Number 3. This is a movie about deer doing deer things in the forest along with several other types of critters that inhabit that environment. It seems like it should be somewhat boring, and yet I find that it never really overstays its welcome enough to drag. Bambi translates existing in nature to film in such a way that you want to go slow so you can take in every detail of the experience. It's one of the best creations of a fully immersive atmosphere in a Disney movie. For 70 minutes, it really feels like you're deep in the forest. This is largely thanks to art director Tyrus Wong, who is responsible for the lush, impressionistic style present in the forest environment in the movie. The use of the multiplane camera also does a lot for immersion with the way that it adds depth and tangibility to the look of the film. There's a cyclical motif woven throughout the film as the seasons change and the circle of life runs its course. As nature takes its course, Bambi experiences innocence and fun, and then transitions into loss and maturity as he grows up. There's a lovely balance between these things. We get to witness the wonder of Bambi and Thumper ice skating on a frozen pond in the midst of the serenity of winter, but we also have to watch Bambi lose his mother. The presence of man looms throughout the film and brings a darkness that always seems to be lurking around the edges. The open meadow brings feelings of freedom and excitement that can immediately turn to danger and dread, and the death of Bambi's mother shows that the threat is real. It's impressive that a villain who is never actually seen can have such a great impact. The characters in the movie aren't particularly deep, but they don't need to be. I'm a little uncomfortable with how horny or Twitter-pated they become when they grow up. but I guess that's part of the life cycle. Bambi, Thumper, and Flower are a fun trio, each with their own distinct personality. Feline can take a chill pill. There aren't many songs in Bambi, but I really like the ones we get, especially Love Is a Song, which bookends the movie beautifully. Little April Shower is probably the most memorable. And we can't forget, let's sing a gay little spring song.
Get it right.
The forest fire caused by man marks the climax of the movie, and it's honestly just a treat to look at. The animation in these scenes manages to stand out in an already superbly animated film. The forest fire signifies more of that cycle where death takes its toll, but makes way for new life. And as the forest begins to grow anew, Bambi and Feline also welcome their own new life into the world. Bambi is simple in the best way. It's pure, it's nature, and it's life. And while I'll never forgive them for this scene,
You're done. You're done.
I think Disney did something pretty special with this one. Number 2. Pinocchio is actually a really weird movie. A wooden puppet comes to life, is lured into showbiz by an anthropomorphic fox, narrowly escapes turning into a donkey on an island, and later is swallowed by a whale. And it works surprisingly well. The events in Pinocchio's plot may seem random and unrelated, but what they have in common is they give Pinocchio the opportunity to make choices, learn right from wrong, and then to reflect and grow afterwards. This is all in pursuit of Pinocchio's end goal, which is to have the Blue Fairy turn him into a real boy, because she's just the authority on that for some reason. Looking at it realistically, it's pretty unfair for Pinocchio to be brought into existence and expected to be capable of making all the right choices, especially when grown adults are doing their best to manipulate him off his path. But it works within the context of the movie. Pinocchio is often a very dark movie, notably when it's revealed what the true purpose of Pleasure Island is. The coachman was enticing young boys with the chance to engage in consequence-free debauchery, only to turn them into donkeys and then sell them off to work in the salt mines. And while Pinocchio escapes, to our knowledge, the coachman is never caught. That's pretty scary. The animation in this movie is classic top-notch Disney. It's very impressive, specifically the underwater scenes. I imagine that it was a big challenge for the animators, and they pulled it off so well. Jiminy Cricket is one of the most iconic Disney characters there is. He often annoys me, but the movie wouldn't work without him being there to accompany Pinocchio and guide him. Pinocchio himself can veer a little into annoying territory as well, but he's mostly just an innocent boy who experiences some traumatic events, and he grows to become brave and selfless in the end. Geppetto is very sweet, and I'm glad his dreams of being a father to a real boy came true in the end. But the best character in Pinocchio is Figaro. The adorably spunky little anger-filled cat has a heart of gold, and he's always been the highlight of watching Pinocchio for me. The biggest lasting impact of Pinocchio, and obviously something that has more than transcended the movie itself, is the song When You Wish Upon a Star. This song is Disney. I've always loved that what is essentially the Disney theme song came from Pinocchio. It's just an incredible song. Nothing can match the sentiment of this song or the feeling that it gives me. I don't have strong feelings about any of the other songs in Pinocchio, but I do like them well enough. Hi Diddle Dee Dee would probably be my next favorite. Overall, Pinocchio has a simple message conveyed effectively in one of the more complex Disney plots, and the pace of events finds a balance that doesn't rush, but doesn't leave time for boredom either. There's an exciting climax with Monster the Whale, and a heartwarming ending with Pinocchio finally becoming a real boy. It was an ambitious choice for the follow-up to Snow White, but what else would we expect from the perpetual risk-taker, Walt Disney? Number 1. This isn't even a competition to me. Bambi's great, and Pinocchio's even better, but Snow White? Get out of here. For some, it might seem like you have to like Snow White out of pure reverence for it being the first. Not just the first Disney movie, but the first full-length animated feature ever made. This is the definition of groundbreaking, and I'm just thrilled that I genuinely love it. Snow White is one of my most watched movies in general, and it astounds me how well it holds up over 80 years later. For Walt Disney's vision, his gargantuan risk to churn out this well is insane. Animated Disney movies have always been strongest based in the realm of fairy tales, as that's where they got their start. These simple stories of princesses and villains are brought to life through Disney animation and made so timeless due to the sheer quality of the animation and the enchanting music to accompany it. Disney brings a charm like no other that can really worm its way into your heart. Snow White as a protagonist is a little dim, but her innocent kindness and naivete was clearly intentional. As her name suggests, she's a pure soul that audiences can root for. I do like Snow White, but I get great entertainment value from mocking her actions and decisions throughout the movie. I actually made a whole ranked list just based on her antics. This isn't exactly a credit to the movie, but the unintentional humor I find in it is definitely part of what makes this movie hold up for me. The evil queen, on the other hand, turned out precisely as intended. Her presence is both regal and terrifying. She commands the room like no other, and her scenes in the film are my favorite part of the viewing experience. Each one of them is deliciously rich and captivating. Her transformation scene is one for the ages. The dwarfs provide a complete contrast to the queen in her darkness. They are humorous and lighthearted, and their connection with Snow White is a huge reason why the movie works, especially Grumpy. Grumpy is the only character in Snow White who has an arc. He puts on a show of disliking and distrusting her, but it's revealed that she has indeed captured his heart. After Snow White takes a bite of the poisoned apple and enters the sleeping death, the dwarfs tearfully mourn around her in a tear-jerking scene. It's already sad, but the shot of Grumpy breaking, unable to contain his sobs, brings the emotion to another level. It was the success of this scene, the ability to make audiences truly feel for these animated characters, that was considered the true victory of Snow White. Cartoons were silly, for entertainment purposes only, and Walt and his animators proved that it could be so much more. Animation had the ability to move people, and that was a soaring achievement and discovery. Snow White's animation displays mind-boggling attention to detail that isn't just impressive for its time, it's still stunning to this day. I think of sets like the Queen's throne room, or moments like the underwater shot looking up from the well, and I am so impressed. The music in Snow White is a huge element of its charm. I love every song, with the exception of Blood-a-Lot-a-Lum-Dum. I don't hate it, but I find the song unnecessary, and the scene it's in goes on for too long. But Someday My Prince Will Come and One Song are home runs, as is the score that accompanies the film. The themes sound grand and romantic, and at times frightening when needed. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs confirmed Walt Disney's status as a pioneer in animation, and its success opened infinite doors for the company. The movie is charming, silly, scary, and emotional. It shows us the importance of kindness and goodness, and how dangerous and obsessive the pursuit of vanity can get. With its memorable characters, beautiful music, and striking animation, it is without a doubt my favorite movie from Walt Disney's golden age. Snow White is rare proof that sometimes you can nail it on your first try. And that caps off the list. Thanks so much for joining me on this first installment of the Ranked Eras mini-series. I'm fascinated with the history of Walt Disney Animation Studios, so it's always a joy to talk about things like this. Let me know your ranking or even just your favorite movie from the golden age in the comments down below. If you liked this video, consider hitting like or subscribe, and head over to the Trove to find more ranked videos like this along with trivia and video essays. The playlists are also linked in the description down below. Thanks again for hanging out, and keep an eye out for the next ranking in this series where we'll cover the wartime era. See you next time.